I remember.
Yeah, I think we probably can start. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 41 of Sugidama Podcast, the podcast about Japanese sake, the drink which is being enjoyed in many countries around the globe. And today we are going to talk about Hong Kong, one of the largest export market for sake. But before I introduce my guests, let me tell you about our sponsor, London Sake, who has one of the widest selections of premium and craft sake available online today. You can choose from over 100 sake from 25 breweries, and they will deliver across the UK and many European markets. And if you don't know what sake to choose, you can use simple online tasting notes together with very sensible and affordable food pairings to help you decide. What's more, you can get a 10% discount by just using the code SUGIDAMA, all caps, during checkout. London Sake, making sake simple. My name is Alex, and I live in London. I am a certified sake specialist, sake judge, sake educator, and sake advocate. Besides this podcast, I have Sugidama blog, where I write about all things sake, and publish tasting notes, overviews, and information about sake events happening in London. My guests today are Eric Fung and Will Jarvis, who both live in Hong Kong. Eric is the owner of Flavor of Life, a sake importing-exporting business based in Hong Kong. Established in June 2018 in Hong Kong, Flavor of Life is a purveyor, I love this word, of Japanese sake and beverages from select family-run producers in Japan, predominantly from Yamaguchi Prefecture. Hello, Jim Ryan, whose book about Yamaguchi sake is about to be published, and we will talk to him later in this season about it. But Eric also imports sake from Shiga and Nagano prefectures. The Flavor of Life portfolio includes such brands as Abunotsuru, Miyoshi, Kanyanaka, Nakashimaya, and many others. Will Jarvis has been living and working in Asia for more than 8 years and has a consulting business, Sake Matters, in Hong Kong. He works closely with Eric as well as with other local concepts and importers on a variety of projects, events, and tastings. Will also writes for the Sake Breweries Association of North America and other sake organizations and Asia-wide publications. We recorded our conversation at the end of September, just before World Sake Day, which was mentioned a few times by Will and Eric. Just to put our talk into some perspective, Hong Kong is behind only the US and China in terms of sake export destination, and only by a small margin, and well ahead of other export countries. There are a few reasons for that, including the city status as a large trading hub and gateway into mainland China, but also a high awareness of Japanese food and drink culture in Hong Kong. So, without further delay, let's listen to our conversation with Eric and Will about the sake scene in Hong Kong.
Please welcome our guest.
Hi Eric, hi Will. Great to see you guys. Thanks a lot for agreeing to talk about sake scene in Hong Kong. Yeah, it's very cool. How are you?
Good. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite, Alex.
Yeah,
Thank you for the invite, Alex.
no problem. Probably we can start with you guys talking about yourself a bit, how you got into sake, what you do, and anything that and why you're in Hong Kong. Because I think Eric, you're Canadian, and Will is Brit. So I wonder how you ended up in Hong Kong.
Sure. Maybe Will, I'll start. So a little bit about myself. Alex, as you mentioned, I'm Canadian. I ended up actually in Hong Kong really because of my full-time job previously within finance. So it was a logical choice coming from Japan back to Hong Kong, and then picking up another role here within the financial industry, which is one of the obviously the stronger areas of the economy in the city. How I got into sake was really, it wasn't a straight kind of path. I think it just kind of dropped in on me. Um, I personally love to drink, and obviously I travel back and forth, and I've lived in Japan for a while. So I ended up picking up sake as a thing that we could probably look into kind of, uh, starting a business with. So really that was how I kind of jumped into it. And then in 2018, that was when we started our Hong Kong business. And we originally had the intent for our company to be more of a trading company for wholesale export. And that had slowly then kind of morphed into what we have now, which is a little bit more of the retail scene in Hong Kong, which, I deal with a lot of the retailers. And I accidentally bumped into Will on one of those days in a supermarket where we were doing some pop-up events. So it was a lot of accidents that kind of brought our, brought sake and myself to know Will in Hong Kong. So I'll stop there, and Will, maybe you can pick up where I left off.
Yeah, of course. I don't know how far you want to go back, Alex. My background's been food all the way through. So my dad was a chef many years back, and I guess I've always been in kind of the food and beverage industry. So I ended up to answer your first question, ended up in Hong Kong. I've been there nearly 4 years now. So we were in Shanghai before that. It kind of feels like we're on the run a bit. So we were in Dubai for kind of 5 years as well. And by we, I mean my wife and I. But yeah, logically ended up in Hong Kong after a stint of nearly 5 years in Shanghai. She also works in food, which is how we met, and it's kind of taken us to some great places around the world. And luckily, Hong Kong is probably our favorite place right now. So hopefully they'll keep us for a bit longer. And really, jobs just took us there. So as you can tell by the accent, British, there for many years. Glad to be out right now. We have our own problems in the UK right now, so it's great to be in a city which again has its own issues as well, but it's a great place and a fantastic sake scene. And I guess my interest in sake developed from my very first trip to Japan back in 2007. We would tend to kind of go off to interesting places for holidays rather than the kind of usual European hotspots, and Japan was always on the list, so we kind of went there with no expectations for sake. And I think our first trip was really just drinking beer and soaking up all that Japan has to offer, which is obviously huge. And then probably kind of trip 2 or 3. So living in Shanghai was obviously just a couple of hours flight from Japan, so very easy to pop across. So I guess on a sort of trip 2 or 3, kind of wonder what these other guys were drinking that wasn't beer. And of course couldn't read any of the kanji, so just kind of head first in, started drinking as we all do, probably the cheaper, nastier, hot stuff, badly served, badly looked after, but just kind of fell in love with the interest of it. And then, various courses and inductions and trainings later, here I am, talking to you about my love of sake. So, kind of by accident. What are those guys drinking?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I usually ask my guests about their first sake experience or how they got into sake, and apart from probably few people who are Japanese and who gradually got into sake, most of the people usually had some kind of aha moment or some kind of moment when, after years of avoiding sake because they had some bad experience, as you said, at some restaurant with hot stuff, which for some reason was called sake, which was not necessarily was sake. Somebody persuaded them, oh yeah, try that, and they said, oh wow, it's so cool. But it's not like it's a lot of people who live in Japan, who were born in Japan. They've got the same sort of trajectory. They were looking at sake as something like, oh yeah, it's my granddad is drinking, I'm not interested. And then they got into this amazing world of...
Yeah, and I think Japan's just full of those mysteries. So, I mean, it seems, having been traveling there for kind of 15 years now, it's a lot easier to get around. There's a lot more English being spoken, but I just think around every corner there's something different. It just feels like, even though you're still in Asia, it still feels very different to a lot more of Asia. So it's not just the sake, it's the food, it's the way the streets look, the way people move around, everything. There's just so many mysterious things still. Having been there many, many times, there's still something new and something different that you don't quite understand and kind of want to get interested in. And sake was just one of those. And it wasn't really a bad experience. It just didn't know anything really about it, I suppose. And kind of curious minds led us down to where we are now. But it wasn't a bad experience as such. It was just a mystery, I suppose, that we wanted to unravel.
Okay. Yeah. Pretty cool. So let's talk about Hong Kong, because this is probably the first episode in the series when I want to talk to people from different parts of the world, and probably Britain as well, about the sake scene there, because obviously I'm sort of London-centric. I live in London, and I don't travel much at the moment outside London. So I'm quite interested in what sake scene looks like in other places. And Hong Kong is one of the biggest, probably, overseas market for sake, after, I guess, China and US. So how does it look like?
Yeah, well, from my experience, I think that ever since we kind of started the business in 2018, it's actually changed quite a lot. Hong Kong in itself, in general, is a very diverse kind of melting pot city where a lot of cultures just kind of come and go. But I think that with COVID and where people were kind of stuck, especially for the local community, which loves to go to Japan, and they couldn't suddenly go to Japan, it went from not having too much variety, if I could say that, Will, to over the past few years during COVID, to having a lot of new brands, new labels, a lot of variety in terms of different types of sake. So I remember when I started doing our first retailing type of pop-ups in the city, namazake or fresh sake wasn't really kind of that big of a trend, or it wasn't very well known. And then, I remember even Kimoto style sake was something that not everyone knew. I had some people come up to me a few times and say, well, this isn't sake because it doesn't taste that kind of ginjo aroma that everyone's very used to. And, come back to the present right now, and the sheer number of other retailers, importers, and even sake competitions that have locally grown to build that type of interest into the product, and the educational kind of courses that you can take has just, it's just cannonballed out. It's there's so much right now that it's almost impossible to keep up with a lot of the trending of what's coming out. And also for Hong Kong, I think as part of the sake scene that we have seen, and this also goes back down to how the Japanese government is trying to promote sake, is that we do see a lot of prefectural kind of events where each prefecture kind of sponsors events to showcase their makers, their suppliers, and at times it's not only sake, it's probably any of the produce or any of the products. So it has that huge following from where I saw before people would just take a suitcase, fly over to Japan, buy what they can, to now kind of, obviously having that variety at their doorstep, or even now basically they can order it online and the next day you'll literally get something brand new that you've never seen yesterday. So yeah, it has grown a lot from what I've experienced.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, we weren't really locked down in Hong Kong with COVID, but it was a great place to be stuck. If you're a sake fanatic, as we both are, it's a great place to be, because there's a ton of it there. And Eric's quite right. It seems to have kind of exploded in the last sort of couple of years with more and more online importers, some better than others for sure. And some with a better reputation that look after the sake better than others. But there's a huge amount. And if you look at the stats, our city is about 7.5 million people, but we're one of the biggest importers by value. So we don't bring in necessarily so much, but we certainly bring in the really good stuff. So the average bottle price is really quite high. I think we're only kind of beaten by Macau, which is like 25 minutes away, where there's lots of casino money being spent on sake, I guess. So we do like the good stuff. So there is a lot of Ginjo out there, which is kind of Hong Kong. If you look at the wine sections of any supermarket in Hong Kong, it's very much high-end Burgundy, high-end Bordeaux, with some New World stuff kind of tucked in the corner. So I guess Hong Kong is all about, in many ways, about the label and the reputation. But those in the know do also have access to some fantastic, more kind of local jizake, as Eric says, Namazake is big here. And I think the general thing in Hong Kong is that people really understand sake, which I guess London's a little bit behind the curve right now. But people have been to Japan. There's a ton of Japanese restaurants in Hong Kong. We have 2 or 3 sake samurai now in Hong Kong. So it's a real concentration of sake knowledge and passion. So yeah, it's a great place to be. And now that we can travel again, I'm sure there'll be a massive export of people to Japan in the next few weeks and months.
Oh yeah. It's quite interesting that you mentioned that it's quite recently you see a lot of development and a lot of more brands and sake coming into Hong Kong, because I can see it here in London as well. So I guess it's probably a combination of the government policy of Japan, because they try to stimulate export, and probably COVID, and probably just general increase of interest to Japan, at least in the West, when the generation which grew up on anime and these kind of things became very, very popular in the 90s, 80s. They now wealthy enough to buy sake. They got a lot of interest in Japan quite naturally. And but yeah, I think it's quite interesting that by value, it's Hong Kong is pretty high, and compared to other places.
Yeah, I mean there are the Tetra packs of sushi, but
oh yeah,
which is I'm a big fan of, and there's the 1-cup sakes and all that kind of stuff as well. But largely, yeah, there's you've got to invest a little bit to if you're going out shopping.
And maybe just to add one more thing in terms of why the value may potentially of the sake be a bit higher in Hong Kong is there's a very, very strong cultural need from a business perspective to gift. So where Will mentioned about the branding, it really plays a part where you're kind of giving a gift that's very noticeable, it's recognizable. So that gift giving culture is quite high, and you do see that during certain large festivals or holidays over the course of Chinese New Year, as an example, in Hong Kong. I've seen people kind of now, instead of just bringing wine as a gift to go visit relatives, they would kind of swap it out for sake or something else just to give it a bit more of a flair. But also at the same time, when there's a huge foodie culture here, there's a huge dine out culture. So I think that also plays a big part in the products that are selected, the sakes that are selected for that type of gift giving event when there's a business function. So I think that's also what we kind of see as well, at least for myself.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because I guess gift culture, like in Europe, probably not as big as in other countries. And also, if you give somebody a bottle of sake as a gift, and most of people still don't really know what it is. They just put it on the cupboard and forget about it. And they call you in a couple of years' time, say, oh, I still got this bottle. What should I do with it? So, yeah, it's probably a combination of the culture and some kind of awareness what you can say, oh, yeah, it's sake. I know what to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's coming to the UK. I mean, I go back every now and again, and obviously I've been to Campai, London, and a couple of other places now, and it's great to see it developing, and it's becoming more, more accepted and understood for sure. So that's great. But yeah, you're right. In Hong Kong, if you gift a bottle of sake, most people in the room where the gift is being given will know what it is. I took some bottles back for a friend's party in the last couple of months, and like you say, Alex, it was kind of left on the shelf until I kind of discovered that, and obviously helped to consume it. But generally, that it's not recognised in the UK, and people have unfortunately still, as you know, have this kind of a kind of wall goes up. This isn't good stuff, and I've had this before, and it's not great, and it's hot, and it's going to give me a bad headache. So we're all trying to persuade people that's just not the reality.
Yeah. I think obviously the UK is definitely behind Hong Kong, behind US in terms of sake, but it's you can see a lot of progression here. You can see much more sake shops opening up, because I remember when I just started doing this, my blog and buying and drinking sake, it was like a Japan center and that's it, and pretty much. But now you've got several shops which specialized in sake with an amazing choice of brands.
Yeah. No, it's good to see. And a great route for me always, I think, is when you see it on a tasting menu, wherever that might be. So, we in Hong Kong, it's kind of a given that they're one of the tasting beverages amongst all the wines will be a sake. But I'm at a place in London in a couple of weeks, and it's great to see there's a couple of sakes on their pairing list. It's a typical one you've heard of. I'm sure Le Gavroche. It's obviously a very famous French. It's got sake on both the expensive and the lesser expensive wine pairing. So that's really good to see. From a truly traditional French establishment that's been around for 40, 50 years with very traditional French cooking practices, to see the wine list invaded by a Japanese sake is fantastic. So. And those are the kind of people we want to get into it. Those are the kind of people that will be traveling, they'll be talking at parties and getting passionate about it, understanding food and enjoying food. So, I love to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's true. It's I read about Gavroche, and obviously Fat Duck, they also got sake on their menu. So it's you can see that the sake is creeping into the food culture gradually, and it's what we here trying to convince a lot of people. It's amazing drink, just try it, and it's very diverse, so you can always find something that you like. So in terms of sake in Hong Kong, I mean, I guess the majority of sake is probably consumed in the restaurants, and there is a part which is probably people buy in retail. So how does it work? What kind of restaurants? Is it like you can see sake in Japanese restaurants only, or you can see it across the different types of restaurants? And what kind of sake shops, or can you buy sake in like a supermarket or something?
Well, it's kind of everywhere essentially. So the Japanese restaurants, there's high end all the way down to more informal izakayas that'll have options on it. Some with a kind of draft out the cask, or the kind of kikek thing, mainly by the glass. So we have a ton of those kind of izakaya sake bars, which is where I prefer to drink sake. But obviously on special occasions, there's the top end, which is to save up for and enjoy, and don't look at the check too closely at the end of the day. But that's where you'll get a pairing, or you'll get obviously more interaction with the team. In terms of shopping, everywhere. So you get it in a 7-Eleven, paying for your kind of cell phone bill. You can also pick up a small bottle of sake if you want to. Supermarkets from all levels, so from the kind of cheaper end, so kind of entry level supermarkets. I'm kind of thinking Welcome Here, Eric, and those kind of places. You'll have 6 or 7 or more kind of sakes, and then you go all the way up to the kind of higher ends, kind of equivalent in the UK would be Waitrose. Those kind of higher end brands would again have shelves and shelves of the stuff and chillers of the stuff. So that's a great thing to see, is when the supermarkets themselves are actually taking the time to to chill the stuff down as well.
Yeah.
And they'll have kind of sake festivals and all that kind of. I mean, I'm sadly not there for World Sake Day tomorrow. I'm stuck in Kuwait, which is not a great place to be for World
Yeah.
Sake Day, I have to say. Not planned, but yeah, I'm sure Hong Kong will be awash with lots of kampais tomorrow, which I'm very envious of.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so actually Will's hit the nail. So I think it's everywhere in Hong Kong. It's permeating into, I guess, all different types of cuisine. Obviously, the Japanese cuisine is the most prevalent. But I mean, even for myself, our we try our best to basically pick a cuisine that's non-traditional to do a pairing in a non-traditional type of restaurant setting or cuisine, and see how it goes. Because I think that although sake is everywhere, there is a smaller group that are just kind of entering the world of sake from wine, and that there is that hesitancy to kind of pick it on the menu if it's not Japanese. So I think that there is definitely a bit of education that still needs to go on to say that it is very well versed, and versatile in itself to kind of pair with pretty much anything. But I would definitely say that it is everywhere. So it's not something that the regular day-to-day or the professional consumer won't know in Hong Kong. They definitely know what that product is. It's just in what setting and where should I have that with my meal or have it by itself. So yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting. I think Hong Kong is on my list to visit at some point because I've never been to Hong
Definitely.
Kong, and I'd love to go there. Yeah, and
Yeah, and I think Eric's right. People, it is everywhere, and people kind of get it. And Eric mentioned that there's quite a lot of award things happening and judging, and we've just had Hong Kong HKIWSC, so the International Wine and Spirits stuff, and then there was the OSA, the Oriental Sake Awards, a few weeks before that one. We've kind of stumbled through COVID, and we had some sort of restrictions on dining and gatherings, which didn't help with events and tastings. And I guess Eric and I were quite creative around those sort of times, which thankfully is behind us now, hopefully. So it's opening up again. Hong Kong's still a bit cautious.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of mask wearing going on. We've just scrapped quarantine, one of the last countries in the world to have a quarantine. So we're hopefully going to see a bit of a boom back in the city, which is much needed for our economy. And probably a lot of people will be leaving, but that's good. I mean, a lot of people will also be arriving, I hope too. Yeah, it is everywhere, and it's great to see there's still bandwidth to increase that for sure. But the interesting thing I find different from UK versus here is that my kind of Western friends in the UK will have quite a negative view of sake or no view on sake, whereas Western friends in Hong Kong will easily identify a bottle, know what it is, will have obviously been to Japan most probably, and embrace it much more. So, similar backgrounds, just so happens that we live in different parts of the world, but it's just very accepted and de rigueur in Hong Kong to have a bottle of sake. It's not like wow, what's this crazy thing? It's that's sake, great. Let's open it up.
Yeah, interesting. And do you think that people in general in Hong Kong, there are sort of tendencies to have one type of sake over another, or there are some kind of regional preferences for what kind of sake people prefer compared to other parts of the world, or what do you think?
I mean, well, I'm happy to be corrected, but it seems like the Ginjo seems to be that super premium type of category that, most of the consumers, most of the guests kind of go for or reach for as their typical or iconic flavor profile for sake. We have seen that change, I guess, because of just the sheer boredom of being in Hong Kong and not being able to travel. People do try different things, but I would say that as a retailer ourselves now in the Hong Kong market space, we do see a lot of our customers lean towards that Ginjo, Daiginjo style, and I mean I may dare to probably also say that most of the consumers are still kind of preferring the Yamada Nishiki type of flavor profile as well of the sake that they try. So yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on it. I mean, but yeah.
I think you're right, Eric, and it's I don't know why it's necessarily like that. Then it's something to do with the kind of local palate, but they tend to go for that more aromatic, delicate, more floral kind of styles of ginjo. Every time it feels, which is a shame. I kind of respect the craft that goes into making such a delicate, difficult brew, but I'm personally prefer something a bit more rustic and simple. So I'm always looking for the bottom shelves on Jozos and Himotos and the kind of simpler stuff, and Junmais and that kind of thing. Which is here, but there's certainly less of them. And that's maybe driven by the restaurant. Maybe the restaurants are guiding the people that, if you look at most Japanese, mid-range to high-range restaurants, it's pretty much all ginjo, daiginjo, and the top level within those categories, which is perhaps skewing the retail sales a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I always just kind of think the good news is Hong Kong's buying a ton of sake, so I can't moan too much about the people on the pallets. But it would be nice to see a bit of a balance in terms of the kind of poor long-suffering Honjozo in particular.
Because what I notice in the UK, for example, very often people prefer drier sake, sort of like Karakuchi style or something like that, to slightly more like classic sweeter taste of sake. And
I think that might be driven by kind of just our heritage of wine drinking.
Yeah,
in Europe generally,
Right.
I think palates are preordained with a kind of an acceptance of dry, possibly acidic styles rather than the more delicate, sweeter ones. But you can have all the Honjozo and all that kind of stuff. I guess Hong Kong will carry on buying the ginjo.
Yeah. So do people buy sake and obviously they buy sake and having it with at home with meals or something or for parties, right? So it's quite common, I guess, in Hong Kong to do that.
Yeah. I mean, Hong Kong is amazing city, but we don't have a lot of space. So spaces are a premium. We don't have a ton of apartments are small, kitchens are smaller. It's difficult to kind of cook up too much of a lavish meal in a average Hong Kong kitchen for sure. And eating out is great value. So there's a huge amount of eating out going on, and we're very much a out of home dining country, which is amazing. But yeah, I think people have it at home, and I mean it's gifted a lot, as Eric says. It's just you'd reach for that into your fridge the same way you'd grab a beer or grab a bottle of wine, I suppose. But I suppose, I guess, probably consumption probably out of home is probably pretty high, sure.
I definitely agree with that, Will. Most of it is, like you said, it's out of home. There's a new trend actually for some of the restaurants because of just kind of getting a little bit more of the acceptance from the consumer to go and spend and dine there, is that you can order online sometimes the sake from another, from your preferred shop and have it delivered over to the restaurant. And, they'll let you open it with either a corkage, which is, heavily subsidized as long as you buy another bottle to kind of trade in. But I do see that that's kind of another way where they're trying to attract people to start to dine out again more, or, pick that restaurant or pick that particular venue over another. And you do see that a lot. So it's good in the sense that they are being creative, but, if you pick the split, Will's hit the nail. It's mostly restaurant dining or outside of the home.
And just as you know, Alex, the kind of the Asian dining is very communal. So big gatherings, the style of food's all sharing. The best thing to do is to go out with a lot of people, because then you can get a whole range of stuff on the table, and it's kind of every man for himself when you go out kind of eating. But that will involve lots of obviously drinks and to be shared as well as the food. So we tend to eat out just from that perspective. It's just a social thing we do.
Yeah.
Which is great. One of the many things that I love about living where I live.
Yeah. Okay, before we continue our conversation about Japanese sake in Hong Kong, let me remind you about London Sake, our sponsor, and their huge selection of curated sake sets, which provide a great opportunity to explore various styles and types of sake. Have a look, but don't forget about the magic word Sugidama, all caps, to get your 10% discount. In terms of like trends and any kind of trends, apart from that, you obviously mentioned that increased variety of sake during COVID. Any other interesting trends you noticed in Hong Kong? Because, for example, I noticed here that and I think Eric also mentioned it in Hong Kong, that before quite recent, we didn't have any namazaki here, or it was very sort of unusual thing. Now we can see much more namazaki coming into the UK, and you can find namazaki in different shops. So anything similar or something like that in Hong Kong?
I mean, personally, I see two trends or observations that are very, very prevalent. So with what has happened with COVID, to basically have people, pretty much stay at home for most of the time, that online kind of purchasing from online shops has dramatically increased. There's so many more shops, but because of the weather in Hong Kong, it's so hot and humid most of the time. When we first started our delivery services or in the market, when we went out to go buy sake online, most of the shops didn't really offer a chilled door-to-door last mile delivery service. But you do see now that demand has greatly increased. It's become a very stable demand, and a lot of the logistics companies, even the much larger ones that traditionally would turn away kind of last mile chilled delivery service for smaller shops, are now taking it very seriously to build that business, because it's not even actually just for sake, it's just a demand for frozen and fresh kind of foods. So you see that huge trend of home delivery, chilled service to facilitate, like you said, Alex, where there's that namazake that has to be chilled, throughout the entire process. And that's really one thing I see. Another thing I see is that Hong Kong's proximity to Japan is very close, and most of the public in general has a keen interest in Japan as a place to visit and obviously study the culture. So they follow the sake drinking culture very closely. So another recent trend that I've seen or observed is really the fact that there's this boom of a request to have low alcohol, light sake. So low alcohol, closer to what you would see from a regular bottle of wine, because it's been a little bit more prevalent in the sense that sake has been more common as an alternative to wine within Hong Kong. So a lot of customers just want to drink another bottle instead of just, having one and then calling it a night. So I think that 10 to 12%, alcohol by volume level, similar to wine, has picked up a lot. And that trend obviously is kind of booming in Japan right now. And that understanding and like you said, the media that you get from Japan comes over to Hong Kong, and it's kind of building that type of hype for that category of low alcohol sake as well.
Interesting. Yeah, again, Eric, you're closer to the numbers than me as an importer, but I guess from my side, it's probably more just the style of concepts where sake is served. So we have the very high-end dining, as I said before. We have the nice communal izakaya kind of sake bar with snacks scene, but there seems to be more kind of dedicated. I'm not talking hundreds here by any means, but there seem to be a few more sake bars that are purely just kind of standing sake bars where you can get a glass or a 180 bottle or a 360 bottle, or say 300 ml bottle size portion to kind of mean that you can try 3 or 4 of an evening. And there might be some snacks, but you're not going there for the food, you're going there purely for the sake experience. There's been a few more of those popping up in areas that were perhaps less less likely to have that. It feels like there's better penetration of those kind of concepts now in the city, and they're becoming a lot more kind of brighter, more appealing to, I guess, the younger generation perhaps, in terms of their designs. They're not that kind of dark and I say dingy in the nicest possible way, because I love that kind of smoky, kind of drinking den mentality, the atmosphere of the izakaya. But these are much brighter, cleaner, stainless steel everywhere kind of style of concept, and that's good to see.
I see. Interesting. And do you have seasonal sake? Because here again, if compared to the UK, I think the first seasonal sake we started getting was Hiyaroshi, and it's only, I think, one brand. And then we saw a couple of things that, like a namazake coming in spring, and but pretty much that's it. We don't have much of seasonality in terms of sake here in the UK. What about Hong Kong?
Well, we're lucky. Yeah, we're just. Well, I guess I've been traveling the last few weeks, so I've not seen much Hiyaroshi yet, but I know it's there. As I was leaving, there was lots of Natsuzake, so the summer sake was there. But yeah, we get all that stuff, which is amazing. And Hong Kong seasons don't change that much, so the sake bottling is quite a nice way of seeing that the seasons change. It's generally just always hot and sweaty. But yeah, we have all that, which is great. I really like it. And I got an email today, actually, Alex, from the UK, so it's probably the one you're thinking of, Masumi. The email came through of their Hiroroshi's just being launched.
Oh yeah.
Which is a great one if you're thinking of buying one. But yeah, that is there for sure, and great to see in Hong Kong. And that's a really, again, we're just so close. It's just an hour's flight or a couple of hours flight away, which is fantastic. So that's a real benefit of being there. And yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we get all the seasonality here, as well as at least for some of the makers and suppliers I deal with myself personally. We also sometimes get some of their limited editions, chemistry or science projects to kind of share with the community. And, as it builds and, because they're always interested, as well as what the Hong Kong market wants in terms of the suppliers. So they obviously have that intrigue to design something new. Will, I think for the past few months, I'm not sure if you've noticed as well, I know you've been traveling, but I've also been seeing a lot of different bottles right now where they're just experimenting, bringing in different types of koji yeast types of sakes to kind of just change up just the flavor profiles a little bit more. So we definitely get a lot of that variety just because of the proximity and a very, very solid kind of import-export trading between Japan and Hong Kong, that we get some of the new products in a very short period of time, and the consumers love it, the customers love it, they like the label designs and all sorts of stuff, and it's just interesting to see what they come up with every few months to tell us, to kind of share with the Hong Kong market.
Yeah, and there's a lot. You're great point, Erica. There's a lot going on with these and koji and label design, which I sometimes my traditional side of my mentality sort of rebels against it a little bit. I do quite like the old-fashioned stuff that is hard to read and decipher, and is baked in those century-long recipes rather than these new scientific experiments. But there is a great place for them, and again, it's growing the category. It's opening up to new people, and that's obviously a great thing. And we do get a lot of that. Yeah, there's some incredible labels here. You'll see, I see stuff on the on various reports and on the various things that pop up on my phone, and you kind of wonder if that's going to get to Hong Kong, and lo and behold, it's there a couple of weeks later. Even the kind of the short supply stuff, or the kind of unique or limited edition things tend to somehow find their way into the city, which is amazing. How they're doing that, I don't quite know. They must have a great network out there. But yeah, a lot of the interesting, hard to get hold of stuff still seems to end up here, which is amazing.
Yeah. And what about promotions, marketing? So how does it work in Hong Kong? What people do to promote sake? Do you have many sake tastings or some other events, or how does it work?
We did have. I guess they're going to start coming back soon, I hope. I mean, I guess the last sake big event I went to was Sake Walk back in 2020 maybe, or 2019, which looked and seemed amazing, and was going to be the beginning of a big rollout every year in the city. And then COVID, of course, struck, and so we haven't had a huge amount of events, but I think they're coming back. I mean, the judging's back. Through COVID, the sake judging still happened with obviously much less in terms of quantity of entries, but it's still gone on. So that's been great to see. These guys have kept it alive, which is to their credit, and hopefully that'll all come back. In terms of marketing, everything's online. I mean, Asia is all about online and apps and digital. So it's through that, I guess. Really, various restaurants will promote events with sake, or I mean, as I say, my inbox is kind of full of World Sake Day stuff tomorrow that I can't get to. So there's a lot happening in the city, but that's again all digital, word of mouth. You've signed up, you've been to the restaurant, you've been to that sake bar. That tends to be the way the city operates, I think.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's been so long, so I've even completely forgotten until quite recently. With like Will's mentioned, we're all looking forward to the opening of the borders, hopefully in the next few months, if it happens, because there's a lot of trade shows. So Hong Kong is actually very well known for a lot of the commercial buyer shows out in Wan Chai during the exhibition center. It's a very large facility. And one of the key iconic kind of commercial buyer shows was the International Wine and Spirits Fair that used to happen every November. It's canceled this year due to some of the regulations, but it will happen again early next year in January. But that's also a way for a lot of the actual importers to kind of also market their products to the local distributors, local buyers, but also for the actual makers themselves to fly in to showcase their products directly to the community. So usually with that, the last one I attended was 2019. It seems such a far, it's actually kind of surreal that we're actually going to do it again. But during that kind of week, usually there's a lot of fanfare as well to connect the restaurant community as well with the buyers, because usually those types of trade shows in the past, due to Hong Kong's ease of movement as a hub, as a trading hub, they would just fly buyers across all of Asia, even in Europe, to come in here to kind of do that business matching. So that week usually is a very large kind of event for the city as a whole. And I think another one that Will kind of hinted on is more targeted for the local Hong Kong city would be the Wine and Dine, where it's basically very focused near the Central Pier, so overlooking Victoria Harbour, where there's multiple different culinary booths and people can go in. It's almost like a festival in itself. It is actually a festival, and you can just trade in tokens and try different products, try different sakes, and mix and match, what you would like. And it's all sorts of cuisine, all sorts of drinks. So those are the things I think are those big, large scale kind of events that I'm missing for sure. I hope they come back in the next few months, because it's just been so long that I completely forgotten that they existed in the past.
Yeah. It's true, because I mean, when the sake event started popping up in London, it was something like you're thinking, oh, should I go there? It's so many people there. Should I mix up with people? And now it's getting more and more. You've got like more events, more people coming, and you can see quite a lot of interest.
No, it's hard to imagine those kind of events that Eric was talking about. They seem a distant memory, but they will come back, and it'll. I guess I think the city's done a great job of just keeping sake alive over the last few years. I guess, as Eric mentioned, we couldn't get to Japan to drink it, so we made sure we drank it at home, which has been good for the kind of, I guess, the sake market for sure. But yeah, the city will definitely appreciate some visitors from Japan. It will really add a bit of colour to what's already a very vibrant sake scene. So we're all looking out for those ones, and I'm sure the tickets will be sold out very quickly.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Are there any local sake breweries in Hong Kong?
Not that I'm aware of, unless they're doing it very quietly. We have a lot of craft beer brewers.
Yeah.
It's
Which
probably.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether it's the climate that makes it difficult. I mean, as we've said, it's very humid. I think obviously you can air condition places. I guess probably it's just the fact that rent's so expensive to have, a couple of 100 square meters of location for a brewery would be just make it financially not viable. Even in the more outlying districts, it'd be difficult, I guess.
Yeah, no, Will's absolutely correct. I haven't heard of any. I've heard of a few craft brewers locally wanting to test out using sake rice to make beer, but I don't think it ended up. It was probably just a homegrown experiment that never went too far. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't strike me, maybe because just like it's so ingrained with people that Japan is very close to Hong Kong that they prefer just to have Japanese made sake, and no one's really taken that too seriously to make it locally in Hong Kong. But yeah, I haven't seen or haven't even heard of an idea where someone wanted yet to produce that. I do see a lot though that they would prefer to private label products specifically for maybe their store or their restaurants, and then have their own naming to it. But it would all be, at least from my understanding right now, all made mostly in Japan.
Okay, because it's the only probably area where UK is ahead of Hong Kong, because we've got technically 3 sake breweries, 2 breweries which actively produce sake, Kanpai, and sparkling sake brewery. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So and doing a great job. The guys at Kanpai, I mean, I know they've expanded and they're creating some really fantastic stuff. So I'm delighted for them. They need to start exporting. Hopefully, they'll start having that conversation over here.
Yeah, because it's amazing sake, and Tom is an incredible brewer.
Yeah.
So, are you looking forward to any development in the future? What do you think about the general development of sake scene in Hong Kong? Any kind of thoughts?
Gosh, what do I think about that? I guess it's a well-developed market. I mean, it's fairly mature. Not that it's over the hill. It's certainly not over the hill by any means, but it's very established. I guess we have our own. As same for Japan, I kind of see the kids today, or the youth today, not drinking as much as perhaps my generation did. Maybe that's just me. So they're much more healthy lifestyle. It's all about the gym and looks and all that kind of thing. So I wonder whether we need to, maybe this low alcohol sake that Eric was talking about is perhaps the thing that will appeal to those guys a little bit more. But yeah, it's a generational thing. I think drinking habits are changing. People understand the lifestyle and the importance of healthy lifestyle, and obviously drinking sake in carefully and sensibly is not going to affect that kind of thing. But yeah, kids are taking a different approach to life these days. So similar to Japan, probably similar to many parts of the world. So I guess we need to try and encourage these people to be a bit less healthy and enjoy life a bit more. I don't know if that's a good solution. I don't think I'd do very well in the tourism authorities, but I wonder how we can cater for those guys, I suppose. I mean, the great thing is it's an established market. We've got a phenomenal Japanese food scene, which offers everything and offers all that amazing, quality, healthy, fresh food. So Japan's not going to lose its kind of status as one of the most appealing cuisine types in Hong Kong anytime soon. So let's just hope that sake keeps up with the food.
Yeah, and I mean personally, I see the sake scene in the next few years. It will develop in a way where we align a lot more of the sake that we drink with the region that it comes from, and the regionality would play a role in what people eat. Because I know that across the ocean in Canada, there's Michael Tremblay's been promoting his new book about
All right.
regionality, and there's that more of that awareness. But even in Hong Kong, I would say that um, there are slowly seeing restaurants where they kind of align to a specific prefecture of an area, and that then kind of spurs, well, what would you drink with this in that area? But it's still very in its infancy, because obviously, like what Will said, is it's so established right now. As long as it fits what you want to eat, no one really wants to delve too deep into all those little bits and pieces. But you do see once in a while that we do have customers, or just myself in general as well. I'm also curious at times, what would you pair this? Is there a type of seafood that's quite predominant in that area, or is there a particular type of season you would drink this with a particular type of vegetable? So it may take it to the next level of regionality and pairing, but I mean that's pretty much the only thing I can kind of foresee in the near future, because it's just so common right now that people can pick it up and they know what it is, so they don't have to decipher too much, and they'll find a way to figure out how to drink it, anyways. So it is a very, very developed market, in terms of knowledge of what that product is.
Okay. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's so interesting. It's so interesting to see how sake is drunk and presented and sold in other areas. So yeah, it's a great conversation. At the end of episode, I usually ask my guests to recommend some sake to the listeners, and I probably should have sent you the list of sake which has been have been recommended on this podcast, because it's been already 2 seasons. But I wonder if you could recommend something. It's not necessarily be available in the UK, because basically, people should make some kind of effort and ask the exporters to bring something here. But it could be something that available everywhere. So do you have any kind of ideas, recommendations?
Eric's got a big portfolio he's going to recommend, I'm sure now.
Oh yeah, the whole portfolio.
Well, I think one that's very memorable, that's kind of I quite like, because I like the journey more than anything else, was Abunotsuru, the Miyoshi line, especially the Miyoshi Blue, where it was one of the first products we worked very closely with the producer to kind of market it overseas. And it was designed really for the overseas audience as well, and cuisine, right? That's actually can be paired with Japanese food, but also kind of designed for the broader palette of non-Japanese cuisine as well. So it was a real experience, kind of getting it off the ground, seeing, I guess, the brewery grow, as well as ourselves grow with that product, and seeing it slowly becoming more and more prevalent, and also having that exposure to a market where it's just so interesting to see how people would drink Miyoshi Blue in different sittings. But that's mine.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I've got a few. I'm going to have to say Miyoshi as well, because I've been a part of that journey sort of on the sidelines, and have been very lucky to drink quite a lot of that with Eric. So we bonded over Miyoshi quite early on. From outside of that, my favourite sakes are really built based on experiences of visiting places, and that goes for the wine industry as well. So my wife and I drink a lot of wine as well, and everything makes a lot more sense, and you feel much more part of that business when you've visited either a vineyard or a brewery. So for me, Saijo, which is the little sort of sake village in Hiroshima Prefecture, is a great day out, and Kamo Izumi there is a wonderful sake, which I think is available in the UK. I think Tengu Sake might have a couple of those on there. Like that. I visited the guys down in New Zealand at Zenkuro.
Oh yeah.
Quite a few years back when they were just a garage with a kind of a big metal tank in there, which I don't think is in the UK yet. I'm sure they'd love to be there. But that's a great story and great people. Aside from that, I spent quite a lot of time. I worked briefly in Diamond Brewery in Osaka, which is just a wonderful place with an amazing 7th generation Toji who couldn't be more welcoming. So I always talk about his sake very fondly because it's just a great place. It's great food sake, so it goes wonderfully with the rich food of Osaka, but also pretty much anything else I've tasted it with, which is great news. And then randomly, Hokkaido, which is making a bit of a name for itself now in the sake world, has some great breweries. And I guess one of my best daiginjo, perhaps my daiginjo aha moment was at Otokiyama there, which produced just a wonderful sake, and it's freezing cold, drinking a wonderful sake, and the warmth is that kind of thing I won't forget for a long time. So yeah, very kind of experience-based, Alex. Hopefully some of those are in the UK, or some of those are coming to the UK. But I guess through Eric, I've learned an awful lot about Yamaguchi Prefecture in the last few years. Yeah, I have to thank him for. So I hope there's
thanks, Will, for the journey
coming your way.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for very interesting conversation, and so it's a lot for great recommendations. And we'll be keeping in touch.
Sounds good. Great to be here. Thanks, Alex. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alex, for the invitation.
Thank you. That's it for today. I'll be back with more interviews about various sake breweries and sake around the world, as well as a few special episodes. In the meantime, buy a bottle of any sake recommended by Eric and Will, if it's available in your country. London Sake, our sponsor, actually stocks Kameizumi sake mentioned by Will. If you would like to know more about Yamaguchi sake, which is a focus of Eric's business, Flavor of Life, buy the book Discovering Yamaguchi Sake by Jim Ryan. I will put a link in the show notes. If you are still unsure what sake to buy, look up the tasting notes section on my website, sugedama.co.uk. Dasai is probably the most famous sake brand from Yamaguchi, and it's widely available in many countries. So, if you have any questions or suggestions about any sake topic, just drop me a line. My email address is alex@sugedama.co.uk, or you can tag me on Instagram or Twitter @sugedamablog in one word, or now on Mastodon as well, where I am @sugedamablog@universeodon.com. Again, if you like the episode and want more, hit the subscribe button and you will get every new episode downloaded to your player as soon as it's out. If you would like to give me a bit of support, please leave a review or rate Sugedama podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or anywhere you can do it. But more importantly, please share this podcast with your friends on your social media, chat apps, anywhere. The more new people start listening to Sugedama podcast, the more actively the podcasting platforms start recommending it to other listeners. So it's the best way to bring new people to the world of sake. Thanks a lot for listening. Kanpai. Sugedama blog. Sugedama blog.